The Silent Village. In the waning days of October 1985, under a harvest moon casting an eerie glow over the Romanian countryside, 4 friends embarked on a fateful adventure. Tom, Jane, Mike, and Sarah were thrill-seekers with a penchant for urban legends and haunted places. Their destination, the forsaken village of Brasov, shrouded in legend and forgotten by time. Whispers of the village's curse had circulated for generations, tales of those who entered never to return. It was the perfect place for their Halloween night escapade. They arrived at the village just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the decaying buildings. Crossing the village's threshold, they were struck by the unnatural silence. No birds sang, no insects buzzed, and even the wind seemed to have stilled. It was as if time itself had stopped. The air was thick with an oppressive sense of foreboding. At the heart of the village stood an old church, its spire piercing the gloomy sky like a skeletal finger pointing to the heavens. Drawn to the church, they ventured inside. The interior was dimly lit by the last rays of the setting sun, casting long shadows on the ancient paintings that adorned the walls. These paintings depicted a dark ritual involving the villagers and a shadowy entity. The air grew colder, and they could feel a presence watching them. Suddenly, the church bell rang out, its toll echoing ominously. Though there was no one to ring it, the ground trembled, and an ominous presence seemed to swirl around them. One by one, Tom's friends began to vanish, their terrified screams fading into the silence. Panic set in as Tom realized he was the last one left. Frantically searching the church for answers, Tom found an old leather-bound book in a dusty corner of the church's library. The book contained cryptic instructions for a counter-ritual to break the village's curse. It spoke of an ancient pact made by the villagers to appease a dark entity in exchange for protection. A pact that had backfired, trapping their souls and any who entered. To perform the counter-ritual, Tom needed to gather specific items scattered throughout the village. A silver chalice from the mayor's mansion, a black candle from the village apothecary, and a piece of obsidian from the blacksmith's workshop. With no time to lose, he ventured out into the foggy streets, the silence now filled with his own anxious breaths. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on the cobblestone streets as Tom navigated the village. Ghostly apparitions of the long-dead villagers materialized, their hollow eyes watching his every move. They whispered warnings and tried to obstruct his path, but Tom pressed on, driven by the need to save his friends. He found the mayor's mansion at the far end of the village, its grandeur faded and walls crumbling. Inside, he discovered the silver chalice on a dusty mantelpiece, guarded by the ghost of the mayor who tried to dissuade him with tales of eternal torment. Next, Tom headed to the apothecary, a small, decrepit building with shelves lined with dusty bottles and dried herbs. The black candle sat on a shelf behind the counter, and as he reached for it, spectral hands grabbed at him from the shadows, whispering of broken promises and lost souls. The apothecary's ghost, an elderly woman with empty eyes, appeared, recounting the village's tragic history. She told Tom of the dark ritual that had gone awry, binding the villagers' souls to the cursed land. Finally, Tom made his way to the blacksmith's workshop, the largest building in the village. The air was thick with the scent of burnt metal. The piece of obsidian lay on an anvil, glistening darkly. As he picked it up, the blacksmith's ghost appeared, hammer in hand, and warned Tom of the entity's wrath. The blacksmith, once a protector of the village, had been consumed by the entity's power, and now sought to prevent anyone from breaking the curse. Returning to the church, Tom set up the ritual space, his heart pounding in his chest. He began the incantation, his voice trembling but resolute. The church filled with an oppressive darkness, and the shadows seemed to close in on him. As he neared the ritual's climax, the shadows in the church coalesced into a dark entity with glowing red eyes. It towered over him, exuding a malevolent power. The entity offered him a deal, his life in exchange for his friend's freedom. Tom hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. The entity's eyes bore into his soul, and he knew there was no other way. With a final determined breath, Tom accepted the deal. The entity engulfed him in darkness, his screams echoing through the church. Outside, Tom's friends reappeared, disoriented but unharmed. As they stumbled out of the village, they were haunted by the memory of Tom's sacrifice. However, as they crossed the threshold of the village, an overwhelming sense of loss struck them. They tried to recall Tom's face, his voice, his laughter, but the memories were slipping away like sand through their fingers. They searched their pockets for any mementos of Tom, but found nothing. It was as if Tom had never existed. The village itself began to fade, the old church and decrepit buildings dissolving into the mist. The friends, now outside the village, were left with a profound emptiness, unable to remember why they were there or who they had lost. Jane, Mike, and Sarah walked away, each carrying a vague sense of dread and a lingering sorrow they couldn't explain. The village of Brasov had claimed another soul, erasing Tom from existence as though he had never been.